Good evening. I'm Alan Osborne. It's November 21st, and you can't make this shit up. So I'm gonna go into some things today and talk about a few things for you people that don't know me, because this show might get shared heavier than most local shows. I think this is a statewide issue. I want you people to know what happened to your state money and your preservation money. My background: I'm a conservative. I worked 35 years for the Department of Defense, and I'm a registered Republican, and I'm a conservative. But that don't mean I think every Republican's doing the right thing or everybody's motivated for the same reasons that I am. That just happens to be the group that I sit in. And that being said, I didn't support anything the damn Democrats did with illegal immigration, and the reason it's so bad right now is because we let this country's open borders get to the point where it's not Trump's fault. He just had to take extreme action because we let it go too long. So it's like emergency triage now on the nation to try to close the borders and get a handle on. We're not here to fund the rest of the world. Charity begins at home, and it's time we start taking care of Americans first. And anybody doesn't think that, well, you can just disagree. So we took all this money, and in Walton County, well, Walton County's have more beach issues and more beach problems than any place that you've seen publicized. So if they're going to come down and do a beach preservation for the Panhandle, don't you think that we ought to be talking about it at local meetings? But not a word was said about this. $84 million got spent. And we're going to go through what we bought with our beach preservation money, and then we're going to talk about the people that were involved. Okay? So without a further ado, stand by. So here we are. This money was bought, and you can look it up online, with about $84 million worth of preservation money. The guy who owned this property, and I'll go into it at the end of it, one of the owners of this property was a guy who was convicted for bribery in Louisiana. And a guy who, I'll just explain the connections when we get to the end of it. But this same guy and some of these same people were very large political donors to people like the Patronus Fund. And people that are in the DeSantis campaign. And probably in some of these others too. And I just don't understand why it happened. But we'll go into it. But I want you to look what a wonderful beach recreation area that we have bought for the Panhandle for the price of $84 million. And the guy that owned it supposedly has $7 million in it. So here's what we bought. Okay, I'm out here reporting on the $80 million piece of land. Okay, you see where those fences are? Right there next to that condo? To that fence right there. That's exactly, and it's all fenced off, that's exactly what the Florida $80 million of preservation land bought. And this is the beach they preserve for you. The other side's a marina. I guess you could jump in the water and swim under it. And this side is a man-made breakwater. There's not a bit of damn beach in the piece of land that's here. And if you brought your kids here, they'd have to climb down the breakwater, which they're not going to remove, and let your kids jump across the rocks. What they could have done with $80 million, that's why this thing didn't get an appraisal. It's not preservation of beach. In fact, during Opal, you could drive a boat through this. This is the biggest fraud, waste, and abuse, quid pro quo, and abuse of the system for political donors that you'll ever see. And I just wanted the rest of Florida to see this wonderful $80 million worth of beachfront that they had to preserve. They already owned the good part of it, already belonged to the people. And this is nothing but a big political payoff. $80-some million worth of it. The second part of my video is I want you to notice something. There's about 1.7 knots of tide right now. This is where that little girl right down over there got sucked over by the tide near the finger jetties last year. And right now, most people, most swimmers, could not swim very long against this 1.8 to 1.9 current. In fact, it's faster than you can float across the ground. So this is just a lie for the people. That's all this ever was. This is not somewhere you can go safely recreate that we should have been spending Florida beach money on. This was a bailout for political favors and political donations. This current's way too bad for that. And here's the third and final part of the dirty deal. Right there's the other side of the fence and the thing. That's what we bought. So on this side, there's a complete breakwater. So you could leap off the concrete wall in your beach preservation money and swim under the public marina. That's right. We bought a liability and a seawall to jump off of, and the other side is a breakwater at a pass, a navigable waterway with a current that sometimes gets up to 2.5 knots and is too dangerous to swim in. Now I'm sorry, this is not how conservatives act. And this is a fleecing of the taxpayers' money and the money that was meant to preserve real beachfront. They could have bought 2 sets of $5 million, $10 million beach homes and built real beach access. If this money was to get a beach and help the panhandle, they could have built 2 real public beach accesses by ripping down mega rentals, paying those people a fair price, and they would have had this. This is the other side of it. So there's your other beach. You can come over here and swim under the boats once they tie up there, or jump off the concrete wall. You can't make this shit up, but you can unelect it, and you can hold people accountable. This is not acceptable for our Florida preservation money. Well, right here, go back to the last meeting, like November 12th BCC meeting, and watch Dan Curry talk about. This is the legislative liaison for Walton County. That's right. Mr. Brandon said that Tuesday that he doesn't, to anyone who he's insulted or offended, I sincerely apologize. My behavior at times erratic, and things I have said and done are unacceptable, and I truly regret those. And that's who is supposed to keep you guys in Walton County informed. But there's nothing in the BCC meetings. None of the commissioners, I think, knew that the governor's staff was about to spend $80-some million of beach preservation, and Brandon wasn't about to tell them. And I'll tell you why, because Brandon has a relationship with Mike Atkinson, and stand by. And this guy right here, Graham Fountain. Yeah, this enormous man has a history going back to Jeb Bush. But he ended up in Walton County working for Mike Atkinson with Eric Aiden, and he working in the sheriff's department until he couldn't meet standards. And then he ran for office in Okaloosa County to become a commissioner. Once the people who own the land that's now been sold for $84 million got involved in that project, Graham's health, because he said he was unable to stay in office due to health problems, which he was unable to master control of the fork and knife, he went to work for the developer who ended up with this property. Okay, he wasn't fit enough to serve out his term, but he was fit enough to go work for a developer on this $84 million piece of property instead of being a commissioner. Okay, that's when he got jumped in there. So once they had the deal done over there and figured out what they needed to do, because his boss, in my opinion, had been convicted of bribery, he then went to work in the state attorney's office full-time. Once again, he could work full-time for the state attorney, as I believe the chief of staff, and for Ginger Bowden, but he couldn't serve out his part-time term as a county commissioner. So that just tells you everything you need to know about Mr. Graham right there. So after I'm sure he worked there long enough to make sure that his old boss wasn't being investigated for this dirty land deal, he then promptly went to work helping Jimmy Petronas get elected, and he's got a history with Petronas, and so does Mike Atkinson and other people. And just lo and behold, when Matt Getz wasn't the commissioner anymore, suddenly Graham has another job. That's right, he's working for Petronas. And where did a lot of Petronas' donations come from? That's right, his old boss. You can't make this shit up. So now Graham's working for Petronas. He's got easy access to the governor. He knows they're not getting investigated, and suddenly we have an emergency. Stand by. There's Petronas. I'd like for him to come explain this piece of beach and how that was the best thing for the Panhandle. And why is Graham on your staff? Is that another quid pro quo? So he worked for the DOT, then he was an overweight sheriff for Mike Atkinson. Birds of a feather. All those dirty corruptions to a commission job. He resigned like Mike Barker, went to work for a developer. Now he's in the middle of an $80-some million deal in your office. That don't look good. And here's Jay Trumble. Jay, supposedly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, supposedly you're the one that decided that this property was so important and had to be closed so fast that we would skip the eminent domain process that'd been in there for years, and we would let the developer just tell us what it was worth and we would pay it. You've got to be shitting me, pal. In the words of Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket, you've got to be shitting me. Why would we have done that? Why would we have not got appraisals? Why? This isn't even a beach. We already had the good part. I mean, that's a man-made area from after Opal that was destroyed. It's not historical beach or preservation. You should have bought some monster beach houses and built regional accesses if you wanted to help the people. But he's a large political donor, isn't he? These people are, aren't they, Jay? And this was just dirty. And it's a bad look for conservatives. And frankly, I'm ashamed. So it makes you wonder, did somebody lie to Ron DeSantis? And why did the people of Walton County and other people, why were we ambushed by this project? Why was it here all of a sudden and it was an emergency? And who can go look at this and think that was the proper use of funds? And why did we skip the eminent domain process that's been in place forever? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't pass the smell test. And frankly, Governor, as an ex-special operations guy that you were once in the JAG with, you know, I was in the same command as you, sir, a part of U.S. SOCOM. I'd like to know, sir, are you going to hold these people responsible for the pig in the poke that you've been sold? I think your staff got sold down the road, sir, and you should investigate. And we, the people, we deserve better than this shit. You can't make this up. I'm Alan Osborne. We just deserve a better government than this. This is a ridiculous use of funds. I mean, at best, maybe that property was worth $30 million. But that would gave us $52 million to buy some real beach. This property already had issues, and there's not a market. I don't believe if you'd have built everything you could have built there, the man could have made 80-some million. No, you can't make this up, and we deserve some answers. This corruption across the board, it's got to be the Constitution and the people first, and all parties second. The Constitution was put here for the people, and we should all play by the same rules. That's the way I see it, and I'm Alan Osborne. Till next time, y'all keep them straight. They can't keep themselves straight, but you can unelect them.